We're grateful for each and every one of you. Let us know where in the world you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let's begin. By 5:45 a.m., the house on Willow Bend smelled like cinnamon oatmeal and fresh detergent. Daniel Brooks moved through the kitchen with quiet efficiency, steel lunchbox snapping shut, Claire's travel mug rinsed and refilled, recycling tied with a neat double knot. It was a choreography he knew by heart. Rinse, fold, stack, breathe. When the world felt loud, routine gave him a language. "Morning, Dad," Claire said, sliding onto the bar stool, hoodie up, hair in a quick knot. 17, bright, too perceptive for her own calm. She dipped a spoon into the oatmeal and watched him like she'd watched him since she was small, measuring the weather by his face. "Bus or ride?" Daniel asked. "Ride," she said. "Coach wants us early for the 800 repeats." He nodded, rinsed the pot, and reached for the dish towel he always folded twice. Across the counter lay Melissa's color-coded calendar printout, Pilates in pink, brand call in teal, wellness coaching in lavender waves. He read the word wellness and felt his stomach knot, not because of what it meant, but how it had begun to mean something else. He had married Melissa when they were young and tender and poor. They had promised simple things and delivered them with pride. He fixed leaky faucets and grilled on Sundays. She laughed with a hand to her mouth and kissed his knuckles over grocery lists. Somewhere between mortgage statements and ring light selfies, the laughter learned to pose. The iPad on the charger dinged. A banner rolled across the lock screen. Shared library. One new photo from Melissa. Claire didn't react. She turned her phone face down, a small kindness she did when she sensed her father's nerves fluttering. Daniel wiped his hands on the towel and tapped the screen. A photo filled the frame. Melissa in a satin dress the color of rain clouds, face glowing with carefully lit perfection. The caption read, "Slow mornings. Finally breathing." He was about to set it down when the live photo pulsed. Out of habit, he pressed it. The brief motion came alive. Melissa's bracelet clinked. And there, behind her in the mirror, a man leaned in a frame, tall, dark suit, steady hands. He settled a delicate necklace against her collarbone, then kissed the air near her temple like it was a practiced ritual. The image stilled again. Daniel's heart didn't pound, it steadied. Claire watched his face without looking at the screen. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," he said, voice even. "Eat up. We'll leave in 10. He tucked the iPad under the mail, the way a man shelters a flame from wind. In the driveway, his pickup coughed awake. The early light had the washed-out look of a weekday that didn't care about anyone's private disasters. He drove. Claire adjusted the radio to a station that never argued with mornings. "You're quiet," she said finally. "I'm thinking about the broken disposal," he lied, "and whether the landlord's going to cheap out again." They shared a small grin. Claire knew half the town through her father's repair calls, knew which landlords cut corners and which neighbors offered pie with the invoice. At the track drop-off, Claire squeezed his forearm. "If you come back for me after 8, I'll bring you a donut before the rush crowds." "Deal." He watched her jog away, ponytail snapping like a metronome. She was his fixed point, the north on a rattled compass. When she turned the curve, he exhaled and pulled his phone. He opened a search window, typed with slow deliberation, "How to view live photo metadata." Then, reverse image mirror clues, necklace brand ID, small padlock charm. He was no detective, but the internet loved a breadcrumb trail. "Brooks," a voice called as a gray sedan pulled up beside him. Marcus Hale leaned across the passenger seat. "You forget we start early on Wednesdays?" Daniel slid in. "I need 20 before we hit the route." Marcus scanned his friend's face. "Okay, what are we not saying?" Daniel played the live photo. No commentary. No preamble. Marcus exhaled a low whistle. "That's not a cousin." "No," Daniel said flat. "Name?" "Not yet. But look." He pinched to zoom the reflected man's watch. Sleek face, distinct crown guard, a small nick on the bezel. He slid to his second photo. Melissa's champagne flute held over a black table with a subtle, repeating logo pressed into leather. "That pattern," Daniel said. "I've seen it in ads." Marcus cracked his knuckles. "Harbor Club or the Fairmont Lounge. Both stamp their menus like that." "Harbor Club posts sponsor shots," Daniel murmured. "Maybe the watch shows up somewhere else." Marcus smirked. "Since when did you get this calculating?" Daniel looked out at the track where Claire ran efficient arcs around the lanes. Since I realize a story tells itself, if you let it. You don't have to yell to be heard. They drove to the yard in silence, clocked in, and rolled the truck out to their first pickup. While Marcus handled the compactor, Daniel photographed receipts that small businesses left clipped to bags. He learned the art of looking without being seen. In a side street behind a bakery, the truck idled in warm vanilla air. You going to confront her? Marcus asked. Confrontation gives the other side your playbook, Daniel said. I'm going to understand first. He remembered when Melissa's desires had been soft and ordinary. A porch swing, a trip to Asheville, Sundays with pancakes, and too much syrup. Then audiences came, small at first, then hungry, and desire became something shined, scaled, scheduled. She chased a brand version of herself, all light and angles and serene captions. Daniel didn't fault ambition. He faulted secrecy. Love can survive confession, he thought. It stars on post-production. At lunch, he parked beneath a sycamore and scrolled the Harbor Club's tag photos. There, 3 weeks ago, a charity gala. The same padlock charm glinting on a model's neck in a sponsored post, tagged at Julian Harper Official. He opened the account. Public. Polished. Real estate and hospitality ventures. Board photos. Crisp suits. Clean-line smiles. In one carousel, a reflection in a glass wall echoed the man in the live photo. Same posture, same meticulous haircut. Marcus leaned over. Julian Harper. Sounds like a man who thinks his name is a logo. Daniel's jaw set. He touches what he believes he can keep. Copy everything. Marcus said. Screenshots, links, timestamps. If you ever need a timeline, make it bulletproof. Not going scorched earth, Daniel replied. I'm going surgical. He drove the afternoon route with a quiet that was more focused than shock. In the late day, he pulled into the driveway and sat in the muted hum. The house looked innocent. Blue shutters, geraniums Melissa had posed with for spring content. Innocent like a rehearsed alibi. Inside, he checked the family cloud settings. Months back, Melissa had insisted on a shared library for easy scrapbooking. He scrolled through her auto imports, latte art, stretching videos, a conference badge with a QR code. He froze. The badge lanyard bore Harper Group Summit. He tapped the QR and watched the check-in stub load with a name he now knew by heart. Julian Harper. Upstairs, he opened the safe where they kept insurance documents, passports, and, per Melissa's insistence, important brand stuff. He didn't take anything. He took inventory. Health policy. Primary decision maker, Daniel Brooks. Banking notices. Transfers Melissa had marked vendor retainer. Small amounts stacked like polite lies. He ran his fingers along the edges of the papers and reminded himself, the point isn't to punish. The point is to put things back where truth can't be moved. When Melissa came home just after 7, the house smelled like roasted garlic and rosemary. Daniel had made pasta the way Claire liked it. Simple, comforting, unpretentious. Melissa stepped in, hair perfectly curled, phone already in her palm. Busy day, she asked, light as air. Productive, he said, placing plates on the table. She kissed Claire's head, measured, camera ready, even off camera. I have an early brand consult tomorrow, she announced, eyes flicking to the iPad on the counter for a fraction of a second. Might be out before you wake up. Be loud, Claire said, deadpan. So, I know it's not a raccoon. They like a family that still remembered how. Melissa spoke in curated highlights. Claire spoke about splits and college tours. Daniel let the conversation breathe and listen for the omissions. He didn't ask about Raincloud Satin. He didn't say the name that tasted like metal. After dinner, Melissa disappeared to answer emails. Claire rinsed dishes and bumped her shoulder into her father's. You're steady, she said softly. I like you steady. Steady, he thought, is not the same as passive. When the house settled, Daniel stepped onto the back porch, the boards he'd replaced last fall cool under his bare feet. He dialed Marcus. I'm not blowing it up, he said when Marcus answered. I'm building a file. Dates. Places. Transfers. Her sister's LLC. Any co-owners. Anything that ties personal with business. What's the end game? Marcus asked. Not humiliation, Daniel said. Accountability. Custody settled with dignity. Finances traced to the penny. And a decision she can't rebrand. He watched the porch light pool over the basil he'd planted, the small domestic hope of leaves growing because they were tended. He wasn't planning an ambush. He was calibrating a clock. Let the gears catch. Let the truth make its own volume. In the kitchen, the iPad chimed again. Another shared image blinked across the lock screen. An artsy black and white of a hand over a suit lapel. The same watch nicked at the bezel. This time, Melissa hadn't meant to send it. This time, the caption field was empty. No words to push the frame into something prettier. Daniel didn't open it. He didn't need to. He pocketed the sound of the chime like a key. Tomorrow, he thought, he'd visit legal aid on his lunch break and schedule time with a forensic accountant a friend of Marcus knew. Tonight, he would sleep. Revenge wasn't a punch in a hotel or a headline. It was a sober ledger and a signature on a page that said, "I saw you clearly, and I chose myself." Morning light spilled across the driveway, bouncing off Daniel's battered pickup like it had every weekday for nearly 2 decades. The rhythm of his life hadn't changed. Coffee at 5:30, trash routes by 7, bills balanced on the kitchen table at night. Yet inside, everything had shifted. Secrets had given him a new pulse, one steady with intention rather than rage. Marcus noticed it too. As they loaded the truck, he leaned against the steel side rail, arms folded. "You're quieter than usual." Not the sulking kind. More like plotting. Daniel kept his eyes on the bins. Not plotting. Preparing. Same thing in different clothes. Marcus muttered, smirking. The day wound forward with its usual mix of noise. Rumbling compactors. Stray dogs chasing tires. The endless clang of bottles. But during each pause, Daniel slipped his phone from his pocket and added another piece to the puzzle. Bank notifications. Melissa's Wellness LLC filings, which he traced online through Maryland's public registry. Small dollar transfers she had disguised as retainers. One, curiously, went directly to Harper Group Consulting. The man had left his fingerprints everywhere. By noon, Daniel had what he needed to walk into the downtown legal aid office. The receptionist glanced at his work boots, then at the stack of screenshots he laid carefully on the counter. "Divorce consultation?" she asked. "Not yet," Daniel said. "Forensic accounting first. I want a full audit of every joint expense she funneled into her side projects. If she financed her affair with my paycheck, I want it documented. Every dollar." The young paralegal's eyebrows lifted slightly. Most men came in trembling, grasping at emotions. Daniel's calm was different. He didn't want vengeance for vengeance's sake. He wanted to build something airtight, something no stage sob story could dismantle. That night, he cooked dinner again, grilled chicken with lemon, roasted vegetables. Claire arrived home from practice and set her earbuds down just long enough to grin at the meal. "Twice in 1 week. You're spoiling me." Melissa walked in half an hour later, hair swept back, smelling faintly of hotel soap instead of her usual lavender shampoo. She kissed Claire's cheek, then glanced at Daniel with studied indifference. "Big meetings tomorrow," she said casually, already scrolling her phone. Daniel met her eyes without flinching. "At the Harbor Club?" Her thumb froze mid-scroll, just a fraction of a second, but he caught it. Melissa smoothed her expression quickly, forcing a laugh. "Why would I be at the Harbor Club? Do you think I have that kind of budget?" He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Silence, wielded carefully, became its own accusation. Claire, sensing the charge in the air, excused herself to the den. Daniel and Melissa finished dinner in near silence. She attempted small talk, something about an influencer collaboration, but his eyes gave her nothing to work with. For the first time, she looked unsettled, like an actress missing her cue. Later that evening, Daniel drove to Marcus's apartment. They spread the documents across the coffee table. Transfers, screen captures, voice memos Claire had bravely forwarded after overhearing Melissa's phone calls. Each piece built the same story. Melissa and Julian weren't a fling. They were an enterprise. She had shifted money, manipulated accounts, and drawn up a quiet exit strategy that left Daniel as the disposable one. "You see this?" Marcus tapped one receipt. "Dinner at Layton's Grill, $400. You think she ordered sparkling water and salad? This is deliberate. A pattern. Courts eat this stuff up." Daniel leaned back, rubbing his temples. "She thought I wouldn't notice. That I'd go quietly, humiliated, and let her rewrite the script. But that's where she's wrong." Marcus studied him. "So what's next?" Public exposure. Daniel shook his head. Not yet. Humiliation burns fast and fades faster. I want permanence. Custody, assets, medical power of attorney. All decided by law, not gossip. And when she tries to play the victim, the paperwork will speak louder than her tears. The apartment clock ticked softly in the silence. Marcus raised his beer. To surgical revenge. Daniel didn't toast back. He simply folded the receipts, slid them into an envelope, and tucked it carefully into his jacket pocket. He wasn't chasing chaos anymore. He was writing the final chapter, line by line, with precision. For the first time in weeks, he felt the faint stirrings of peace, not because the war was over, but because he knew which side time was on. 2 mornings later, Daniel sat in his truck outside the county courthouse, watching people shuffle in and out with folders tucked against their chests. Divorce papers, custody filings, small claims, lives reduced to paperwork. He sipped his coffee, let the bitterness ground him, then stepped inside carrying his own envelope of quiet evidence. The paralegal he'd met earlier greeted him with a professional smile. Mr. Brooks, the forensic accountant, already flagged irregular transfers. You were right. Wellness invoices linked directly to Harper Group accounts. And joint funds cover hotel stays, not just 1, but 3. She lowered her voice. In Maryland, that counts as marital misconduct. Judges take it seriously. Daniel nodded, calm but resolute. That's all I needed to hear. On his way out, he texted Marcus, confirmed. Trails clean and provable. Marcus replied with a single word. Good. That evening, the kitchen felt thick with unspoken things. Claire sat with her textbooks spread across the table, pencil tapping. Melissa moved about distractedly, phone buzzing every few minutes, laughter slipping through in practiced tones. Daniel set down a casserole, then spoke evenly. We need to talk, Melissa. She froze, back turned, spoon hovering over the counter. Now, Claire has schoolwork. This involves all of us. Daniel interrupted, voice steady but sharp enough to halt her excuses. Claire looked up wide-eyed. Melissa turned slowly, composure fraying around the edges. What's this about? Daniel slid an envelope across the table. Inside lay copies of receipts, transfers, and screenshots. This is about transparency, about truth. I know about Julia Harper. I know about the Harbor Club. I know where the money went. Melissa's face drained of color, then flushed hot. You've been spying on me? No, Daniel replied. You left the trail yourself. I just followed it. Claire's pencil clattered onto the table. Mom. Her voice cracked with both disbelief and a hurt she had tried too long to hide. Melissa's eyes darted between them, desperate to regain control. Daniel, you're twisting this. Those were business expenses. Julian is a mentor. Mentors don't book hotel suites, Daniel cut in. His tone wasn't loud, but it carried finality. You build an escape plan with my money and try to make me the fool. That ends here. Silence swallowed the room. Even the refrigerator's hum felt loud. Melissa pressed her palms to the table, breathing fast. You'll ruin everything. My brand, my work, my... No, Daniel said, leaning forward, gaze steady. You ruined it when you traded family for vanity. I'm not here to scream or throw things. I'm here to make sure Claire and I aren't casualties of your performance. Claire's eyes glistened, but she looked at her father with a steadiness that mirrored his. Melissa tried one last angle, her voice softening. We could fix this. Counseling, maybe? Don't let one mistake destroy 20 years. Daniel's reply was cold, measured. It wasn't one mistake. It was a campaign, and it's over. He stood, collected the envelope, and left the kitchen. Behind him, Melissa sagged into a chair, for once without an audience to applaud her act. Daniel climbed the stairs to his daughter's room. She followed quietly, clutching her books. In the hallway she whispered, Dad, thank you. He rested a hand on her shoulder. For what? For finally saying it out loud. For the first time in months, Daniel felt the smallest crack of relief. Not victory yet, but clarity. The kind that couldn't be staged or edited. 3 weeks later, the courthouse conference room smelled faintly of stale coffee and paper. Daniel sat across from Melissa, who appeared via video screen from a rehab facility. Stress had taken a visible toll. Her posture stiff, her voice slower, one hand curled uselessly in her lap. Julian Harper, predictably, was nowhere in sight. Melissa's attorney launched into demands. Half the house, a slice of Daniel's pension, years of support. It was rehearsed, polished, designed to paint her as the wronged spouse who needed protection. Daniel's lawyer, a weary man from legal aid, quietly slid a thick binder across the table. Your Honor, the documentation inside shows marital misconduct, joint funds spent on repeated hotel stays, wellness ventures co-owned with Harper affiliates, and transactions disguised as retainer payments. Mr. Brooks has carried the mortgage and expenses alone for years. Melissa shifted in her chair, eyes flashing panic. Her attorney flipped page after page, her polished mask slipping the further she read. The evidence spoke louder than any performance. When the judge delivered the ruling, the weight of it filled the room. Daniel kept the house, full pension, and custody of Claire. Melissa would keep her car and a modest stipend for treatment. Nothing more. This isn't justice, Melissa whispered, her voice breaking through the video feed. Daniel leaned closer to the microphone. It isn't revenge either. It's balance. You gambled with our family and lost. I'm not taking joy in this. I'm taking back dignity. The gavel fell. The marriage, once 2 decades of effort and sacrifice, was reduced to signatures and divided assets. Yet Daniel walked out lighter, not because the pain was gone, but because truth had been documented, sealed, and final. Outside the courthouse, Marcus waited with folded arms. Well, Daniel allowed himself a thin smile. It's done. She can't rewrite this chapter. Marcus clapped his shoulder. Then let her live with the one she wrote. Life shifted into quieter rhythms. Daniel fixed leaks, cooked dinners, drove Claire to track meets. Melissa's brand sponsorships evaporated. Her polished world shrank into rehab appointments and forgotten posts. Julian, stripped of reputation after recordings leaked online, had been quietly dismissed from his hotel group. Weeks later, Melissa showed up at the doorstep, thinner, pale, voice trembling. Daniel, I want to come back. We could try counseling. He studied her, not the woman he once adored, but the strategist who had gambled his trust. You want to return because your plan failed. That's not love. That's desperation. Her eyes filled. You'll regret this when you're old and alone. Daniel's reply was steady, final. I'd rather grow old in honesty than spend one more day inside your lies. He closed the door gently, not with anger but certainty. Through the window, he saw Claire in the kitchen, laughing with Marcus over a batch of overcooked pancakes. For the first time in years, Daniel realized the truth. Revenge hadn't been about breaking her. It was about reclaiming himself. And that, he thought, was the only ending worth living.